Hey, what's up guys? Today we'll be drawing Shogunyan from Yokai Watch. In this short video tutorial, I'll be going over the step-by-step of how to create this Shogunyan drawing from start to finish. Now, if you just want to see the speed drawing of the entire process, go ahead and click on the info card now. Okay, let's check out the video chapters. Go ahead and check out the video chapters in the description below to preview all the steps or to skip to the chapter that interests you the most. And if you already love what you see on this completed drawing here, feel free to hit like and subscribe now. Okay, let's take a look at the material we need for this drawing. You're going to need a pencil, an eraser, a thin black marker for to trace a refined drawing, and a medium point marker for the profile lines. And you're going to need some color pencils. So what I have here with me is a light blue and a dark blue for the blue skin on Shogunyan. I have a light skin color, like a peach color, and a darker peach tannish color for the tan skin on Shogunyan. And I have a yellow and kind of like a dark gold for these gold pieces in the tail on Shogunyan. And then I have a blue and a dark grayish blue. I know it's confusing when you look at the cover of these pencils, but trust me, this is actually darker. So this is like the light and the shadow for the blue armor. And then I have an orange and a brown, for the necklace. And then I have a red and a dark red for the mouth and the sword scout. Okay? Alright, so throughout the whole video I'll be doing speed drawing a lot. So if you're drawing along, feel free to pause the video and resume whenever you want, okay, to catch up with me. Alright, let's get started. Now before we start our drawing, let's take a look at a reference picture of Shogunyan and find out what shapes and form we can use to help us create our Shogunyan drawing. Okay, so I have printed a official image of Shogunyan right here on the right, and also printed an image of Jibanyan on the left. Now, why I print both? Because Shogunyan is actually just Jibanyan in a different color plus a samurai armor. Okay, so it will help us greatly if we will look at the original Jibanyan and just imagine Jibanyan has a samurai armor. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go with the regular Jibanyan first. Okay, so a big oval for the head, and the oval is flatter on the bottom. See? Okay, two ears, two triangles on the top. I'm going to draw in my cross right here. Okay? And the body is kind of like a square, but it's wider on the bottom. And if you take your pencil and measure it, the body is not even as tall as the head. So that you need to just keep that in mind when you draw to make a tiny little body wider on the bottom. Okay? Now the two arms are really two upside down eggplants. Have you had eggplants before? Yeah. Okay. So eggplants. Okay. And two little triangles for the little feet. Okay. I'm gonna add the tails, the split tails, a little flame at the end. There. So that is the basic shape of an original Jibanyan. Now let's take a look at Shogunyan. So when we do Shogunyan, just remember the proportion of Jibanyan. Okay. So it's actually a little bit at an angle. This sphere right here. See that? So I'm gonna draw the sphere like this. Okay. And then put in the ears. Okay, draw in the cross. Okay, the body. See, at the front, it's a square, right? At an angle, it's actually a box like that. Okay, and then add in our upside down eggplant. Tiny little feet. Flame the split tail. After you have all that, you can start decorating it up with like samurai helmet, okay, and the little armor pieces here and there, little sphere for that necklace, okay, little sword right here, ching. Alright, so see, we're going to focus on the basic form figure first. We get the form figure correct, and then start dressing it up with the whatever costume you have, okay? So, now next, let's take a look at the lighting. So lighting, pretty sure it's coming from the top left to the lower right. Why? Because we have these highlights right here. See all these highlights on the top left area, and then we have the shadow on the bottom right. So see, shadow on the right, shadow on the right, shadow on the right, okay? And the shadow on the bottom, so shadow on the bottom right, so that we know the lighting direction is on the top left. Keep that in mind when you color, okay? Because I'll tell you about that when we get into color, but keep that in mind. The sliding direction is very important. Now that we have all the information we need to start our Shogunyan drawing, let's start by roughing in the basic shapes and form figuring, okay? Okay, so very simple shapes, but now we kind of have like an overall proportion and the form figure of like the standard Shogunyan form here now. Okay, so next step we can add on the costume, you know, like his samurai costume, and we might adjust our shapes here and there a little bit when we put in our costume, but at least now we know a general idea, like, oh, where does the helmet go, where does the armor go, okay? So very good starting point. Now let's add in the shape and forms for his armor and some other major details, okay? Okay, so now I have like the basic shape and form roughed out on top of like the figure form, okay? So now this is actually the most important stage of the drawing I consider, because it is actually the foundation of everything else that comes after. If you have this right, if you have this nailed in, like it will be just a breeze from now on. Like putting in the details, like refining the drawing, it's just gonna be easy. If you don't have your basic shape and forms, okay, where they need to be, you're just gonna constantly be fixing when you're doing refining. And then you don't wanna fix it because you refined too much already, okay? Now, at this stage, I still draw as lightly as I can. It's because I don't want to, like, I want to avoid committing to any, like, any lines too early, okay? But next stage, when I start refining this drawing, you're going to see me draw heavier, because now I know where things need to be, okay? So I'm going to start drawing heavier as I look for those definitive lines. And you'll see that my drawing emerge, just come off, fly off the page, okay? And then the rough sketch, the basic shapes and form will fade away, will feel like it's fading away. And you probably see me, like, drawing circles. Like, I don't just draw a circle with one line, you know? I like to draw, like, the four corners of the circles first to kind of locate, okay, the placement of a general shape, and then draw the other four corners, and then connect the lines to form my circle. It's a very good technique. Give it a try. It'll give you a lot more control of your shape. Okay, but if you're not happy with what you have at this stage, you know, keep working on it. You know, until you're happy, because it's gonna be very hard to fix it once you have it refined. Okay. So, but if you think you got it right, you got it down good, then let's move on to refining the drawing. Remember, we're not drawing our own version of Shogunyan or Shogunyan yet, okay? We're learning from how they should be drawn correctly, okay? And once you can draw it accurately and correctly, then go on to your venture of making your own version of Shogunyan or Shogunyan, okay? So let's start refining the drawing. See how the rough sketch feels like it's faded away now that we have a refined pencil drawing? So, I want you to learn to draw with short and repetitive strokes. Okay? But look for that definitive line that you're willing to commit to in these rough outlines. And then draw heavier when you saw the line, when you found the line that's definitive, draw heavier, okay? That's how to bring your real drawing, okay, from the rough sketch, okay? That's how you can define a line and commit to it, okay? So, now next step is to trace the pencil drawing with a marker, and then erase the pencil drawing afterwards. So, now for this step, the tip is to keep rotating your paper to produce the smoother lines. And remember that you don't have to finish a very long line with one single stroke. You can break it up into several strokes. Just make sure that it looks continuous. So let me demonstrate. For example, this line for the helmet right here. That's 1, 2, 3. See that? It doesn't have to be one single line. You can break up the lines. Okay, now before we trace, If you enjoyed the tutorial so far, remember to hit like and subscribe. It's the biggest appreciation I can get from you guys. Okay, so now let's start tracing. Okay, so when you erase your pencil drawing, make sure you hold down the paper with your other hand, okay? So you don't risk creasing up your paper everywhere, alright? So now next step is coloring. Most objects you draw will have highlight, midtone, and shadows. So see, highlight, midtone is a neutral flat color as if no lighting was on it. And then we'll have the shadow color that is a darker color, a darker shade of the neutral color. Okay, so now on white piece of paper, we can overlay colors to make them darker, but we can't really overlay colors to make them lighter. So what I'm going to do is to mark off, know where my highlights are, and leave those areas white. So, and then color everything else with the midtone, and then I'll bring in the shadow on top of the midtone. So why I leave the highlights white is because white highlights will make it more noticeable, and that your form will look more 3D dimensional. Okay, that's why a lot of times I leave the highlights white. Okay, but if I were to color the highlight, it would just be like a thin layer of the neutral, the midtone color. All right, so when you color, always keep in mind the direction of the lighting and kind of like the form. Now you see how this is kind of like a cell shading technique. A lot of times it's used for Japanese anime because they're doing 24 frames per second. There's a lot of drawings. You can't really afford to color every single frame in gradient. It's going to be really hard to match up the gradient. That's why this cell shading technique was invented, okay, for Japanese animation. But since we're drawing a single picture, we can actually afford to have some gradients in here. So I'm going to keep in mind that the lighting is coming from the top left, shining down. Okay, so to explain it, lighting coming down this way, look at our sphere right here. So this is usually the highlight area. Light hits it, and then most of the rest of the area will be midtone. Now the opposite side of it will be very dark. That's the shadow where light don't hit it. Now, if this object is sitting on the surface, most likely some light will be bounced off the surface back onto the object. That's why the very, very rim of the object will be a little bit lighter than the dark shade. Okay, so this theory is good to keep in mind. All right, now form shadow, usually very soft. The shadow follows the form of the object. Cast shadow, for example, let's say the shadow is casted onto a surface, will have a harder edge. Okay, keep that in mind when you color. Alright, now let us start coloring. I'm going to start with either the smallest area or the lightest color. So I'm probably going to take care of like the red first, and then the yellow, and then the blue. Okay? Yeah, the red is very easy. Okay? Alright, let's get started. Okay, so now that we have all the midtone colors in our drawing, let's take a look at the shadow. Notice how, like with the highlight, it's already some dimension already starting to come out, but with the shadows color in, it will really pump out the drawing. Okay, so now, like I said, there's form shadow, there's cast shadow. Now, some shadows are, you see how it's following the form, like this shadow, like that shadow, like this shadow. It's following the form. Those are form shadows, and when we express it in our rendering, we can actually soften the edge a little bit. So it will describe the form a little bit better. Now some shadows are cast shadows. See, this is a cast shadow from the moon. Okay, we have some cast shadow underneath the neck, some cast shadow from this necklace. Those are cast shadow. Okay, so we will have some cast shadow underneath the arm, underneath the flame here. Okay, so with cast shadow, you don't want to soften up the edge too much. Okay, so yeah, I know it looks kind of flat with just the midtone and highlight, but watch this. See how after we put in the shadow, the whole drawing becomes more dimensional? That is because with your highlight, midtone, and shadow combined, everything will read as 3D forms instead of 2D flash shapes. Now I know it looks pretty awesome already, but we're going to make it look even better by making the profile lines thicker. The profile lines are the outermost border lines of each major form. For example, the tail, the arm, the head, the legs. Patterns on the body, the little details in the armor will be considered detail lines, not profile lines. When you make the profile lines thicker, the whole form will pop out more and you will be able to read the form of your character so much more easier. Okay, a lot of times you have some really crazy detail, really awesome detail in your drawing, but it's just a little bit too much detail. It's a beautiful cluster, but if you punch out the form a little better, it's not only awesome, crazy detail, but also very clear and easy to read form. Okay, so let me show you how it works. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I put in all the profile lines. See how all the profile lines are thicker, and the whole character pops off a little bit more. Okay, and the form, like the arm, the knife, the sword, and the little necklace, the moon, like all the forms pop out a lot better. Okay, so there we have it, Shogunyan from Yokai Watch. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this drawing tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what we should draw next, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now remember, drawing is like playing the piano. You can have the best instructor and the best music sheet in front of you. You might even know the music very well, but it is only through practice that you will get better and become what you want to be. The whole point of my videos is to provide side-by-side training for you on a daily basis. Like riding a bicycle. I might have to hold your bike for you in the beginning, but just keep drawing and keep practicing. Now before you know it, you'll be flying. Okay, that's it. I'll see you next time.